There's a plot moving in real time, and it just tripped over its own timeline. Claressa Shields and Papoose thought they could quietly slide a receipt in front of the culture, wave it around like a smoking gun, and convince every casual observer that Remy Ma is finally being cornered by a legal machine she cannot outrun. That was the plan. That was the whole play. Drop a document, let the blogs run wild with the headline, let the algorithm do the framing, and by the time anybody actually reads the fine print, the narrative has already calcified. Remy is on the ropes. Remy is being sued. Remy is being silenced. That was supposed to be the story you woke up to. That was supposed to be the story that carried Claressa's fight week into a wave of manufactured momentum. And instead, within hours, the entire stunt collapsed under the weight of one detail nobody on their side accounted for: the date on the paperwork. Because the cease and desist that Hollywood Unlocked ran with, the cease and desist that was supposed to look like a fresh legal earthquake, was actually filed months ago, in April, and quietly went absolutely nowhere. Nothing was upheld. Nothing was enforced. Remy Ma has been performing that record on stages, on radio, on live streams, on every platform that will have her, for months since that document was drafted. If it had teeth, she would not have a microphone. And that single fact, that one small piece of chronology, is the reason this entire coordinated smear campaign just imploded in front of the whole culture. And when we get to the part about why that document was strategically leaked this week specifically, and what it tells you about the state of Claressa's fight promotion, you are going to understand that this was never about Remy at all. This was a distress signal disguised as a lawsuit. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Let me set the table for you fully, because a lot of new eyes are on this situation, and I need everybody operating with the same information. Remy Ma, one of the most respected lyricists to ever pick up a microphone, a woman who has spent her entire career being underestimated and then being proven right, released a record earlier this year called You Lyin. That took the culture by storm. The record does not name a single person. Not one name is spoken on the track. But the record is precise. The record is surgical. The record describes a specific type of woman who involves herself with a specific type of married man, and it describes a specific pattern of behavior that anybody paying attention over the last couple of years could match to a very public entanglement. That entanglement, of course, involves Remy Ma's legally still husband Papoose and the professional boxer Claressa Shields. Papoose and Remy are not divorced. Let me repeat that so it sits in your brain the way it needs to sit. Papoose and Remy Ma are not divorced. There is no divorce decree. There has been a filing, there has been performative paperwork, there has been a lot of theater, but there is no final judgment. Papoose is legally married to Remy Ma right now, today, as you are watching this video. And in the middle of that legal reality, Claressa Shields has been openly, aggressively, publicly involved with him for years, referring to him in interviews as her hubby, showing up to his children's events, and now, most recently, referring to all of his children as her stepchildren. That includes the child Remy and Papoose share together, the one Remy has publicly called her golden child. So when Remy Ma released a record that described a woman involving herself with somebody else's marriage, the response from Claressa and Papoose was not silence. It was not dignity. It was not the quiet confidence of two people who had nothing to do with the subject matter. It was an immediate, coordinated, bar-for-bar reaction on social media, where Claressa mysteriously started posting content that matched every single line of the record within hours of the release. And that is the piece that matters. Because a hit dog will holler. And if you are not the dog the song is about, you do not holler. And the stakes here are massive. This is not just a rap beef. This is a woman's career, a woman's marriage, a woman's public reputation, a child's family structure, and an entire fight promotion built on the back of a narrative that keeps collapsing every time somebody actually reads the paperwork. Now let us get into what everybody can see with their own eyes, because before we go anywhere near the deeper systemic play here, we have to walk through the surface evidence, and there is a mountain of it. Piece number 1 is the timing of the Hollywood Unlocked leak. That document surfaced this week during Claressa's fight promotion week, the most important commercial week of her year, and it was framed by the outlet in a way that made every casual reader assume the legal action was current, active, and threatening. But the document itself is dated April, 8 days after You Lyin originally dropped. Which means for 4 months, that piece of paper existed and did absolutely nothing. Remy performed the song on Angie Martinez. Remy performed it at concerts. Remy shot the music video for Put M on the Music. Remy did live streams. Nothing was stopped. Nothing was silenced. Nothing was enforced. Because a cease and desist without a court order behind it is a strongly worded letter. It is a piece of stationery with legal-sounding language. And clearly, whatever demands were made in that April document, Remy's legal team looked at it, laughed, and moved on with her career. That is piece number 1, and it is the piece that dismantles the entire framing of the leak. Piece number 2 is Claressa's own social media pattern in the hours after the record dropped. She was posting a picture with the son she and Papoose have been treating as a photo prop, wishing him happy birthday, at the exact moment Remy's line, "You wanna be a bad, you ain't bad enough," was trending. She was showing off her two-seater Corvette in a very public way, at the exact moment Remy referenced a two-seater on the record. And by the way, has anybody seen that Corvette since? Was that Elise? Was that a Bow Wow challenge situation? Was that just for the Instagram post cycle? Because it disappeared as fast as it appeared. Piece number 3 is the pattern of stunts around the fight promotion itself. The undercard has been changed multiple times. The ticket sales, according to publicly available Ticketmaster maps, are not what the promotion is claiming them to be. Celebrities have reportedly been incentivized to attend and post. Latto was reportedly booked to do the ring walk, and if you had the pick of anybody in Atlanta, and Latto, whose most recent album underperformed relative to expectations, is the name you land on. That tells you the budget is not what it needs to be to book the tier of artist a real main event deserves. Piece number 4, and this one is my favorite, is Papoose's own behavior. This is a man who released 12 albums in a single calendar year, a man who has been positioned as some kind of executive at Win Records, a man who somehow ends up at every single Claressa Shields event acting as a promoter, a consultant, a hype man, a manager, and a +1 all at once, but who nobody has ever seen actually working at any label office anywhere. The only place Papoose exists as an executive is on camera. The only place he functions in that role is when there are lights and a step and repeat. That is not an executive. That is a professional attendee. And when Remy dropped Put M on the music and let his government name fly through the speakers for good measure, his response was to show up at an Angie Martinez barbecue and try to paint her as somebody who is after his money. Which is a comedic accusation on its face given the earnings disparity everybody in the culture is already aware of. So there is piece number 4, and each of these pieces on its own would be embarrassing, but stacked on top of each other, they form a picture that anybody with functioning eyes can read. And oh, do I have more for you? Because if you thought the surface stuff was rough, wait until we get into what the people inside this situation have been saying, what has been posted and deleted, what has been whispered in group chats and podcast green rooms, and what other artists in Remy's space have quietly signaled with their body language over the past several weeks. The Claressa fans are really not going to like what comes next, because there is a specific pattern of behavior from her camp that even her most loyal supporters have started to notice, and it is the exact opposite of what somebody with a clean conscience acts like. And I promise you, when we get to the industry-level breakdown after this, the part where we look at why this document was strategically weaponized right now, this specific week, this specific news cycle, the entire play is going to make a different kind of sense than what the blogs are trying to sell you. The cultural evidence is where this story goes from petty to revealing, so stay with me. The first piece of cultural evidence is the way Claressa has been publicly discussing Papoose's family in interviews. She recently referred to all of Papoose's children as her stepchildren in a public setting on record, while Papoose is still legally married to Remy Ma. That is not a slip of the tongue. That is a positioning statement. That is a woman trying to move herself into a family structure she has no legal or moral claim to, at the expense of a mother who has been raising these children through very real challenges, including one particularly serious situation involving Remy's daughter that required her full attention and presence for a significant period of time. The mother of the golden child is Remy Ma. The stepmother of the golden child is nobody, because Papoose is still married. So, for Claressa to fix her mouth in a professional interview setting and stake that claim tells you everything about what she thinks she is entitled to and how little regard she has for the actual family involved. The second piece of cultural evidence is what has been reported about Claressa's alleged burner account behavior. And I have to be careful with how I frame this, because we are talking about reported allegations, but multiple credible commentators in the space have discussed the existence of alleged burner accounts tied to Claressa, in which some of the most disgusting things imaginable have been said about Remy, including, allegedly, statements wishing that Remy had not survived her pregnancy with the golden child. If those allegations are accurate and multiple people have spoken to this, we are not talking about a rap beef anymore. We are talking about somebody who has publicly positioned herself as a stepmother figure to a child while, in private accounts, allegedly wishing harm on that child's mother. That is not competition. That is not entanglement. That is a level of malice the culture has not fully reckoned with yet. The third piece of cultural evidence is Claressa's history of denial. This is a woman who at various points has claimed she did not know who Remy and Papoose were, that she did not know Papoose was a rapper, that she was not familiar with their family, while simultaneously being a well-documented love and hip-hop viewer, and while, according to reports and screenshots that have circulated for years, she was allegedly in Remy's own direct messages calling her sis, engaging with her posts, tracking her whereabouts, and monitoring when Remy was on the road versus when she was home. That is not the behavior of somebody who did not know who these people were. That is the behavior of somebody who knew exactly who they were and was allegedly conducting reconnaissance while pretending to be a friend. And here is where somebody in the comments is going to say, well, that is a serious allegation. You cannot just say that. And I want to acknowledge that head-on. Yes, those are serious claims. But those claims have been publicly circulating for a long time, they have been discussed on multiple platforms, and Claressa has never issued the kind of specific point-by-point denial that would actually address them. When you have the option to deny something specifically and clearly, and instead you choose to send a cease and desist about a song that never named you, that is a tell. That is a very loud tell. The fourth piece of cultural evidence is the mimicry pattern. Watch what Claressa has been wearing recently. Red hair. Red hair that she said on a live stream just days ago did not suit her and was not for her. Now she has red hair. Remy Ma has famously worn red hair on multiple iconic occasions. Look at the rhinestone and crystal detailing on her recent Fight Week outfits. Remy has been performing in denim covered in what appears to be real Swarovski crystal work, and suddenly Claressa's fits have crystal work on the denim too. Look at the two-tone wig she just debuted in red and black. This is not coincidence. This is not parallel fashion evolution. This is a woman who has spent so much time studying the wife of the man she is involved with that she has started dressing like her. And the fifth thing, the fifth cultural signal, is who is not saying anything. Look at who in the culture has been silent about defending Claressa in this. Look at how few women in hip-hop, in boxing, in the entertainment orbit have stepped forward to co-sign her framing of this situation. That silence is deafening. And that silence tells you the culture has already made its ruling, even if the algorithm has not yet caught up to it. Now here is where we need to shift the entire conversation, because if you stop at the personal stuff, you are missing the actual play. This is not really about Remy Ma. This was never really about Remy Ma. This is about the business situation Claressa Shields and Papoose have built together and the specific commercial pressure they are under this week. Let me walk you through it. Claressa Shields is one of the most decorated boxers in the history of women's boxing. That is not up for debate. That is a fact. But being a decorated athlete and being a bankable pay-per-view commercial product are two completely different economic realities, and the gap between those two realities is where this entire mess lives. Women's boxing at the pay-per-view level, at the promotional level Claressa is trying to operate at, requires a specific type of crossover appeal, a specific type of storyline, and a specific type of media momentum. And the reality of this fight week is that the numbers, by every publicly available indicator, are not where a headline pay-per-view needs them to be. Zeus Network involvement, undercard reshuffling, the reported difficulty landing top-tier ring walk talent, the visible availability of tickets on secondary markets, these are all symptoms of a promotion that is fighting for oxygen. And when a promotion is fighting for oxygen, its team needs viral moments. It needs headlines. It needs anything that will land in a For You page and translate into a last-minute pay-per-view buy. That is systemic angle number one. This document did not leak this week by accident. It leaked this week because somebody in that camp calculated that a fresh Remy is being sued news cycle would drive attention to Claressa's name, and attention to Claressa's name at this specific moment converts to pay-per-view interest. The document itself is legally inert. But as a marketing tool for a struggling fight promotion, it was designed to be a heat check. Systemic angle number two is the media pipeline. Look at which outlet ran with the document first and how it was framed. When Hollywood Unlocked publishes something without providing the date context that would have immediately deflated the entire story, that is not journalism. That is stenography. That is an outlet functioning as an extension of a publicity team rather than as a neutral observer. And this is a pattern in this niche of the culture, where certain outlets have become known for running whatever framing serves the person paying attention to them at any given moment. The manufactured narrative here required an outlet that would not ask the obvious question: if this was filed in April, why are we hearing about it in August? And what has happened in the 4 months since? Any real reporter asks that question. Any real editorial process catches that question before publication. The fact that it ran without that question being asked tells you exactly how this ecosystem works. Systemic angle number 3 is the marriage itself, which is the piece nobody wants to look at directly. Papoose refusing to finalize this divorce is not a personal quirk. It is a strategic choice. And it is a strategic choice that benefits him and hurts Remy specifically in a business context. As long as he remains legally married to her, he retains a specific relationship to her assets, her earnings, and her public identity. As long as he remains legally married to her, Claressa gets to enjoy the perceived proximity to him without ever having to be his actual wife, which conveniently insulates her from any of the legal responsibilities a real spouse would inherit. It is the perfect arrangement for both of them and the worst possible arrangement for the woman whose name is still on the marriage certificate. And what most of the culture is not talking about is that Remy has a very real legal counterplay available to her here. In states that still recognize alienation of affection as a legal cause of action, and there are a handful of them, including North Carolina, a spouse can sue a third party who is alleged to have interfered with the marriage. If Papoose and Claressa have any residence, any property, any legal footprint in one of those states, Remy has the potential grounds for a lawsuit that would make this cease and desist look like a birthday card. Combine that with a potential defamation and slander action for the years of public commentary Papoose and Claressa have made about her, and you are looking at a legal exposure that could be measured in the millions. 8 million is the number that keeps floating around, and honestly, given the sustained public disrespect, that number might be conservative. The systemic play from Remy's side, if she chooses to take it, is not to fire back with a diss record. She has already done that. The systemic play is to convert years of documented behavior into a lawsuit that forces both of them to answer for what they have said and done under oath. That is the layer nobody in Claressa's camp is prepared for. That is the reckoning sitting on the horizon. Because you cannot spend years talking sideways about somebody in public, positioning yourself as a stepmother to their child, referring to their legal husband as your hubby, and allegedly running burner accounts wishing harm on them. And then act shocked when the legal system becomes an option on the table. And here is the truth bomb that ties this entire situation together, the piece that once you see it you cannot unsee it. The cease and desist was never intended to succeed. Read that sentence again. The cease and desist was never intended to succeed as a legal instrument. It was drafted in April, it was sent, it failed to produce any enforceable action, and it sat in a drawer for 4 months. It was then strategically leaked in August, during the most important commercial week of Claressa Shields' year, to a media outlet known for running framing without context, so that it could be presented to a casual audience as fresh, active, current legal action against Remy Ma. The entire purpose of the leak was to manufacture a false impression. The entire purpose was to make you, the viewer, the fan, the casual scroller, believe that Remy is being legally cornered right now, this week, in a way that would damage her public standing and boost Claressa's fight promotion by association. That is the play. That is the whole play. And they thought you would not read the date. They thought you would not check the timeline. They thought you would see the words cease and desist in a headline and immediately update your mental model of the situation. They bet everything on your assumed inability to read carefully, to think critically, to ask the obvious follow-up question. That is the level of contempt they have for the audience. That is what this stunt tells you about how they view the culture that has kept Remy Ma relevant, kept women's boxing on the map, kept the entire ecosystem they profit from alive. They think you are stupid. They think you are not going to notice. And when you did notice, when the culture immediately clocked the April date and started asking why now, the entire premise of the leak collapsed in real time. What was supposed to be a coordinated media hit turned into a public confirmation of exactly what Remy Ma has been implying for months, that these two people are so unwilling to leave her alone, so obsessed with her public narrative, so incapable of just moving on with their own lives, that they will manufacture legal theater to try to control a story that has already gotten away from them. And the deepest, most damning part of this reveal is what it says about the relationship between Claressa Shields and Papoose. Because if this leak was orchestrated as promotional strategy for the fight, that means her name and her image and her professional platform are now being used as instruments in a personal campaign against Papoose's legal wife. And if that is happening with her knowledge and cooperation, she is complicit in a manufactured smear. And if it is happening without her knowledge, then she needs to understand that she is being handled, that her career is being used as leverage in somebody else's marriage, and that when this all falls apart, and it is falling apart, she will be the one holding the bag while Papoose walks away to the next situation. And through all of this, look at where Remy Ma actually is. She is performing. She is recording. She has been signaling for weeks that a second album is coming, that she is chasing a Grammy, that she is focused on her craft and her family and her legacy. She is on Angie Martinez talking about her music. She is in the studio. She is on stages. She is being a mother. She is being an artist. She is not making burner accounts. She is not calling other people's children her stepchildren. She is not sending strategic cease and desists to media outlets in the middle of fight week. She is doing the work. She is letting the work speak. And that is why she wins. That is why she is going to keep winning. Because in every long-running situation in this culture, the person who stays disciplined, stays focused on the craft, and lets the other side exhaust themselves in performative nonsense is always the person still standing when the smoke clears. One person is out here manufacturing legal theater to prop up a struggling fight promotion. The other is quietly cooking an album that could be a Grammy contender. One person is stocking hairstyles and outfit choices. The other is booking radio, booking stages, booking magazine covers. That contrast tells you everything about who has actually won this and who is still trying to convince themselves they have not lost it. And to Remy, if any part of your team is watching this, the encouragement from the culture is simple and clear. Drop the second album. Drop it soon. Drop another record if you feel moved to. Because every time you release music, every time you step on a stage, every time you show up as the artist and the mother you have always been, you dismantle the narrative Papoose and Claressa are trying to build without having to say a word. The music is the answer. The work is the answer. The consistency is the answer. And the legal moves, if you choose to make them, are always available to you. Alienation of affection in the states that recognize it. Defamation and slander in every state. RICO-adjacent civil actions where the pattern of coordinated behavior supports it. The gloves can come off whenever you decide the gloves need to come off. But even if they never do, even if you never file a single piece of paper in response, you have already won the cultural verdict. The receipts are on your side. The timeline is on your side. The music is on your side. The child is on your side. The audience is on your side. That is a full sweep. That is game over. That is a scoreboard nobody on the other side can flip. This is only the start of what is coming, though, and I need you to understand that clearly before we wrap this up. There are at least two specific developments to watch for in the next several weeks. The first is the actual result of Claressa's fight and how the promotion performs on pay-per-view relative to the expectations that have been publicly set. Because if the numbers underperform, and every current indicator suggests they will, the post-mortem inside her camp is going to be brutal, and the desperation moves that come after are going to be even more revealing than the ones we have already seen. Watch for another leak. Watch for another interview where Remy's name comes up unprompted. Watch for the pattern to continue, because a fighter who cannot generate organic promotional heat will keep reaching for the same tool that failed her this time. The second development to watch for is any movement, any response, any signal at all from Remy Ma's team on the legal front. Because if her attorneys are watching this situation the way attorneys tend to watch situations like this, they are already building a file. They are already documenting the pattern. They are already assessing the venues where a filing would have the most leverage. And the moment that filing happens, if it happens, this entire story enters a new phase that neither Claressa nor Papoose has the resources or the discipline to survive. Stay subscribed, because when either of those developments breaks, we are going to be here breaking it down first, with the full context, with the full timeline, with the full receipts. Hit like on this video if you made it this far, because you're the exact audience this channel is built for, the people who read the date on the document, the people who ask the obvious follow-up question, the people who refuse to be handled by a media ecosystem that assumes you will not do your own thinking. And for the next video, we are going deep into the Papoose executive at-win records situation, because there is a specific piece of that arrangement that nobody has talked about publicly yet. A specific detail about how his name ended up on that masthead in the first place, and once you see the actual structure of that deal, You are going to understand why every single one of his public moves for the last 2 years has been aimed at protecting a position he was never really qualified to hold in the first place. That video is coming very soon. Do not miss it. Talk to you then.